So I wanted to make a quick disclaimer before we actually get into things. I make light of it in the bumper intro, but I am aware that I'm particularly late to the party with talking about TTC. This video has been in the scripting process before any of the videos made on them were public, and has also taken a while due to work and life and a lot of stuff, and also I'm not covering the video everybody else is going after, but if I do make any sort of similar talking points to other videos, I wanted to make it clear that I didn't try and steal any of their points. It's just a coincidence. I also wanted to make note that I did cut two specific things, one being a mention of Ephwrong's Hogwarts Legacy article, and the other being a mention towards DS's dealings with Tony Sonic. I cut these because Ephwrong took down his article and Destroyer actually did make good with Tony, and while they're both particularly small mentions and were scripted/recorded before said events actually happened, I just didn't feel like that they were necessary anymore and decided to axe them entirely. Finally, I just want to emphasize that I do not condone anybody going and harassing Ephwrong and Destroyer, because it's a very sleazy thing to do.
Is ecstasy legal here?
Hey DS, you're red, right?
An oddly specific question, but yes I am. Why do you ask?
Because this guy named Zach Goes Rad did a video on Shari 5.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't you cover him recently?
Yes I did, and credit where it's due, his points have gone beyond informing me that Shari is saying things that are on the screen as if that's an actual point. However, his arguments are now fucking terrible no matter which way you slice it. Like, at least Shari actually was pointing things out on the screen. You have to give him that.
Considering he's wanted me to cover a video on him for some reason, I see this as killing two birds with one stone. 3 if you want to count part of our group. So, you want to commentate on it?
Yes I do.
Man, I'd hate to be that person who does the funny commentary meme, but we're not even a minute into this video and I have a few problems. Oh hey, guess I am that person. First of all, the chemistry between both Ephwrong and DS fucking sucks. You know how in most good co-ops, the two commentators will try and make sure to have their interactions flow naturally, maybe through some witty and cleverly timed banter, for instance? Yeah, throw all of that out of the fucking window and you get this shit. Most of their interactions practically amount to,
"Hello, it is me, Destroyer the Shy. I am going to make point. Okay, now that I've made point, I will let my co-partner continue to make some more point while I sit in the corner and piss my pants."
Hello, my name is Ephwrong Josine.
and it just comes off as incredibly janky in the long run. The skit, if you can even call this one, also isn't all that good either. It's just Ephwrong and DS spouting off info in the most bored way possible, without any kind of attempt at, well, anything. Finally, the biggest issue and the thing that's gonna haunt me for the rest of my days is that the editing is also really not good. Destroyer Shy's avatar pictures aren't properly centered with the background. There's also some obvious noise with his audio that persists throughout the entire video. And speaking of backgrounds, the shade of the background differs a little bit between both Ephwrong and DS's interjections. Like, why though? Like, at least with the first two issues, while I don't know exactly what type of softwares that either of them use, there are tons of tutorials available on the internet that can help them with these types of issues. There is another specific issue I have with the editing, but I'm honestly saving that for a later point when it's more relevant. Now, it was brought to my attention that apparently Ephwrong and DS edited their points separately, as could be seen with their video on Keyblade, where the background doesn't properly loop and Destroyer's OC is permanently apparently off to the side for whatever reason. And to that, I have to ask, again, why? Legitimately, this comes off as a way more janky and stupid way to make a commentary. Like, I'll admit that having multiple editors work on a single commentary isn't a native concept. The Cloud Palace, for example, have done that, and it's a thing that can work. But this method, it doesn't.
Bazinga, 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 bazinga.
Well, you see, character that I totally did not make as an allegory for actual arguments Ephwrong brought up when he checked the script. Make good videos. But in all seriousness though, the Cloud Palace has a style in their videos where 3 different editors are working on it. While they do end up having somewhat different styles, instead of having to Frankenstein's monster a video together, because neither of you had that much communication during the making of it, it's divided into equal parts, along with some level of quality control and, communication between the people making the video. So it doesn't feel as jarring as this hunk of junk. Hell, you can even see how the editors actively went out of their way to make it less jarring, like keeping the drop shadows on the avatar pictures. Anyways, because this editing is driving me up the wall, I'm going to be re-editing their points and giving them Sheldon Cooper and Leonard from The Big Bang Theory, because this is why we don't get to have nice things.
Okay, before we begin, I would just like to say that Tony Sonic will not be planning to tackle any of the Pokemon games or even Chari 5's videos anytime soon. So he gave me permission to do them for him. So I'm not really sure if anything is gonna work out well. And I also don't think that Bendy and the Ink Machine remake won't be out early of January 2023 because there's a lot of life problems with me right now, and there's just so much things that I have to tackle on right now because, life stuff and things, video ideas and all that stuff. But yeah, that's just my point.
So, you're taking the same approach as Tony Sonic. I'd be annoyed, but that's the least of this video's problems, believe it or not.
Hold on!
Yeah, I'm doing this gag now. What are you gonna do about it? Shoot me? You won't. Okay, more questions. Who is Tony Sonic? What is Tony Sonic's style? How is Zach Goes Red's style supposedly similar to Tony's? Why is this a bad thing? Why does it even matter at all? How can you stop the rain from falling down? Is Porky Pig a murderer? Is water wet? Did Lunatic the Game really have sex with my mother? I have too many questions! Destroyer makes this really weird reference to Tony Sonic, someone who, in the context of this video, is only mentioned once so far, unless you count his name being shown in the thumbnail of Ephwrong's video on Zach in the beginning, and just leaves it at that. Like, I'm not saying that you have to give a 12-page essay on the life and times of this man, but you could probably show, I don't know, a small clip to compare both of them, or even just do the unheard concept of saying how they're similar. Give us, at the very least, something that'll get whatever point you're trying to make across better than this. Ephwrong does make a decent point about how Zach should do retakes and edit his audio, because he talks slowly and stumbles over his words, but Destroyer Shy? Absolutely nothing.
Regarding your disclaimer, first off, I see you still haven't learned how to spell Shari 5 in the time between my last commentary on you and now. Shari has 2 R's in it, not 1. This is a mistake repeated throughout the entire video, by the way, which leads to some especially humorous moments when we see him counting Shari 5s with 1 R, Sins, on top of the screen, despite seeing Shari with 2 R's name on the screen at the same point of the video. For that matter, I have no idea what a controversy is, although I assume it's related to the concept of a controversy. Oh, also, sentences end with periods, not ellipses, and if that is supposed to be an ellipses, you're supposed to put a space between each period. Also, the sentence structure here is just horrible. There should be either a comma or a period after the word content, and the and should be cut, with I don't want to start any controversy being its own sentence. Also, it should be with this video, not for this video.
Shut the fuck up!
Ephwrong, buddy, pal, compadre. I did this joke in my last video, so you get it. Did you really need to spend nearly a minute to make a point that is essentially
"Lol, you spelled stuff wrong, you idiot"?
You really didn't need to pad the video out tenfold to point out every little grammatical mistake that Zach makes, like, at all.
Yeah, It is a wonder man can eat at all. When things are big and small, WHO can tell what magic spells we'll be doing for US.
See, it's one thing to talk about a nitpick, but maybe, maybe talking about what is at its worst, a minor spelling error that won't affect the video that much, is taking the idea of nitpicking a little too far, perchance. Ephwrong could have easily made it an audio duct or even a smaller interjection. It's not like it's Belmo's now deleted commentary on Brandon's top 5 worst starter Pokemon that TP and Silver covered, where it was a solely text-based video with multiple issues that made the commentary harder to read and understand. It's a single misspelling of a username that, even with the misspelling, we'd all still know who it was referring to, and some grammatical issues in the disclaimer. It's not that bad, bro.
Yes.
No.
Oh no. He's using the robot voice. And considering the fact what happened in my first commentary video, that's already alarm for concern. I understand this is a collab video, and I know I'm not want to talk because I did it myself, but A, that was my first video, so I at least have an excuse for that, whereas you've used your normal voice. And B, you don't actually do anything to distinguish yourself between the two characters, which is even worse.
So the point about how Zach doesn't distinguish himself from his character is fine, I guess? I could potentially make the argument that the robot voice is literally what's supposed to distinguish the two, but I digress. The rest of this interjection, though? No. Fucking no, if I might add. Not only do you make a really dumb and useless throwaway reference to another video, but also in what universe does "it was my first video" count as an excuse for supposedly doing something you're getting onto Zach for? Like, that makes literally no sense. Ephwrong actually did provide a possible clarification to this when he checked the script, claiming that DS said that Zach should have the experience to understand why doing this is a bad idea. And if this is the case, I mean, it's still an incredibly wonky point that isn't explained all that well, not helped with how Destroyer isn't that great to understand in general. And if you're wondering why I'm using a different avatar for this, your mother.
What move that Nidorino thinks it's doing, it most likely isn't going to affect Gengar, considering it's a ghost type that isn't affected by physical attacks.
It's probably using a move, I don't know, maybe called Bite?
Thank you for putting the name of the move on screen for no reason.
Hey, it's almost like YouTubers do this as a visual gag to emphasize what they're talking about. What do you know?
It turns out Chari is right, because the dark type moves, or even dark type itself, weren't even included in this generation, but was included in other generations, so leave Chari with no sin.
While you do acknowledge that he's right, I just want to point out that you wasted essentially a minute explaining this, that it should have been left out of the script entirely. Now, if you wanted to actually point out a real sin, Chari was actually wrong about the fact that ghosts can't be harmed by physical moves. Technically, they can be harmed by physical moves. They can't be harmed by normal or fighting type moves.
Yeah, You gonna show anything to support the claim you're making there, Buster? Nope? You're just gonna say some stuff and expect the audience to automatically go along with what you're saying? Okay, whatever floats your boat, I guess. While you are correct that normal and fighting type moves cannot hurt ghost type Pokemon, Gen 1's physical special split is not as cut and dry as you make it out to be. Also, I'll fully admit the possibility that I'm making a big stretch here, but even if you took technical machines into account, the Nidorino in the intro would likely only have normal and fighting type physical attacks, though the only outlier outlier in the move pool being Poison Sting, because Gengar is also Poison type, and Nidorino does seem like it's doing that move anyways. Besides, everyone knows that Poison Sting means that you lunge at somebody and bite their face off.
That's Nidorino's cry, not Nidorino's.
Hey look, who cares?
But nitpicks are automatically bad, oh no!
Hi, Teganium. Bye, Teganium. Sure is a good idea to use that media clip for almost no reason and have it add nothing. I hate everybody right now.
Ignoring the fact you blatantly stole his bid from Tony Sonic.
Look, it's bounced the level.
Hey look, who cares?
Ephwrong, you want to explain this?
Gladly. It doesn't matter if nobody cares, it's still something wrong with the game, and therefore something that should be pointed out in a video that goes over everything wrong with it. If you think nitpicking is an issue, that's a problem with the format, not Shari specifically.
Don't you just love it when a commentator unintentionally admits that a point the person they're covering makes is correct, but still argues it anyways? Nowhere in the portion of the video did Zach ever say that it wasn't an issue at all. He only just said that nobody cares about Nidorina's cry being wrong, and to be honest, I don't blame him. It's a very minuscule problem that I'm fairly certain most people would either miss or not even care about. You going off about how this is still a problem doesn't debunk what Zach is saying.
This is my grandson. He's been your rival since you were a baby. What is his name again? Bro, he's your grandson. I don't think the senile old man should be handing out elemental monsters to 10-year-olds.
The age of 10 is required to get these little monsters. Plus, even though the name is gameplay-wise, not story-wise.
Well, you are correct about the age. That wasn't even the real point of the sin. It was the fact his grandfather didn't remember his own grandson's name. Now, granted, game-wise, yes, it makes sense, but it's still a flaw in the game. And the anime barely follows its own rules most of the time, so using that as an argument doesn't exactly mesh well.
Okay, cool. The anime doesn't follow its own rules most of the time. That's fine and dandy, I guess. Except too bad that this doesn't debunk anything at all. Zach's point, while admittedly it was worded horrendously, was about how the rival's name stays exactly the same within the Pokemon anime. Which guess what? It does! It stays the same throughout not just the Gen 1 anime, but throughout all of his appearances within the show, the movies, and the manga. Now, Zach's point is actually weird, because I don't see how bringing up the fact that his name stays the same throughout the anime in a conversation about the games actually adds anything to the discussion at hand, but DS going,
"Oh, but the anime doesn't follow its own rules, waka flocka flamers,"
also isn't that worthwhile of a point either.
This is some incredible technology to be able to store physical items in a digital datascape and recall them whenever you'd like. But how? Is it like stored on your own computer? You upload it to the cloud? How does the data get called to become physical mass again?
That item gets stored into a cloud and transformed back into a physical item. Even though it's not really true, it is shown in the anime lore.
Okay, one, you're using the movie, which didn't come out until much later.
2 years later, to be exact. Pokemon Generation 1 came out in 1996, while Pokemon the first movie came out in 1998.
Explain away something that wasn't in the game.
That definitely was not some incredibly janky editing there, except it was, and isn't helped by the fact that Destroyer Shy isn't that easy to understand due to his audio quality. Sadly, I wish I could say that this was the only time awkward cuts happen. Now, the rest of Destroyer Shy's point seems fine, but Ephwrong has an actual point to make as well, and it's...
For that matter, where in the anime in the first movie is this shown? Are you going to show us the scenes? Are you going to at least tell us what these scenes are so we can find them ourselves without having to watch the entire anime or the first movie? As the presenter, you're supposed to be giving us any and all important details, which you failed to do in this interjection. And that's not even getting into the fact that the first movie has some inconsistencies from both the games and the franchise as a whole.
Also, there's this truly hilarious scene where Ash somehow manages to beat a golem with Pikachu. How is this significant? Because electric attacks don't work against ground types. There's a reason the fan nickname for this beast is God Chew.
Fuck, while on the topic of the review I'm clipping, Cartoon Hero also makes note that psychic powers were completely different in the anime compared to the video games.
Oh, and I should point out that one thing between the games and the anime is radically different. In the Pokemon games, psychic powers are just another form of attack energy. In the anime and in this movie, however, psychic powers are treated like more traditional psychic powers are. Telekinesis, psychic shields, mind blasts, that kind of thing.
Yeah. For one, I'm not really sure how bringing up how the Pokemon movie has inconsistencies with the game really adds anything. I legitimately believe you could have just left the interjection at, do you have evidence on what you're talking about, and it would have made a lot more sense. But I think we should talk about the elephant in the room. A majority of Ephwrong's argument is just sourced clips from Cartoon Hero's review about the Pokemon movie, and that's not good. I get what you're trying to do because I've seen commentators source clips from other videos to back up the point they're trying to make, but the difference between other commentators and this video is that instead of using the clips to back up his argument, it feels more like he's trying to have Cartoon Hero just make most of the argument for him, especially with how this brings the video's flow to a screeching halt, padding it way out when it didn't need to. And again, that's not good. It's something that's also prevalent in a lot of Ephwrong's content, and if it's not a clip that he's using to substitute a majority of his argument, he's using them to substitute attempts at comedy. And much like Spyro Enter the Dragonfly, it doesn't work. Now, before I inevitably get those comments, I do feel like I should clarify something. Using media clips in your video isn't inherently the issue. It's the way in which Ephwrong uses them which makes me want to down exactly 6 bottles of NyQuil. You can actually make usage of media clips in a video work, and in some cases, you don't even have to try that hard. Take somebody like Quarter Guy, for example, who has media clips just flow into a script so it feels a lot more natural. Another option is that you could maybe, just maybe, edit people's faces onto the media clip, so there's at least some effort being put in. Hell, say what you will about him, but at the very least, Dick Sponge ENT, of all people, did a better job with using media clips than Ephwrong does, because while one could definitely argue that making a point in text through a media clip might not be the best idea, it's better than just,
have a Family Guy clip, aren't I quirky, LMAO?
There were multiple ways that he could have went with it, and he chose the dog shit worst option.
Also, if the first movie is canon, then so are the Magic Pikachu tears, and I don't think I can mentally handle that.
Now why'd you have to remind me of that scene? Even when I was a massive Pokemon fan, that was cringe.
Some things are best left forgotten.
Hey, I can think of one thing that can be forgotten.
Right. All boys leave home someday. It said so on TV.
Really? It said so on TV. Well, the TV also told us that Beanie Babies were worth millions of dollars, that the internet was a fad, and that if I called 951-262-3062, I could talk to Santa. So maybe you shouldn't be getting parenting advice from Rob Reiner's Stand By Me, Mom.
Those 3 statements you made were real life hoaxes, not the ones in the game. And plus, most people in the Pokemon world believe things on TV, but most of us in real life don't.
Using real-world logic and game logic in the same sentence. There's just so much wrong with that, I don't even know where to start.
I mean, so? What's exactly wrong with using video game logic and real-world logic in the same sentence? Especially when Stand By Me is a real movie literally referenced by the game. If it's that much of a fucking hot-button issue to you, then why not also get onto Chari 5 for doing this as well, you silly goose?
Hey, Willow? Never say that again.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Hey, wait a minute, how'd you get into my house?
Gramps! What did you call me for?
How did Oak manage to call Blue? Assuming Blue was going as fast as I was, and assuming he wasn't stopped by the old man in Viridian City, he would at least be in the middle of the Viridian Forest by now. Do we have phones? Did Oak send an aide? How did the aide catch up so quickly?
I'm guessing Blue might have took a shortcut to get to the lab. That either the aide ran to Blue while he was in Viridian Forest.
1, where's your proof? And 2, and probably the more important part here, there are only 2 ways back, and both of us have the ability to take it, right? Unless you're telling me there's a path we somehow couldn't take, and you don't show that. Also, we don't see them during that, so it makes even less sense.
Well, ignoring the fact that Zack was clearly not trying to make an objective statement, given how he obviously said, "I'm just guessing," so you badgering him about showing evidence or whatever is just really flimsy. I have to ask a legitimate question to everybody in this chain. Why the hell does any of this matter? I mean, maybe I'm missing something, but this seems like the most minuscule issue about the game. Like, oh man, oh boy, the game doesn't explain or show every single detail that goes behind it. Someone phone the authorities. I'm gonna talk about this in more detail in my final thoughts, but this is a problem I have with CinemaSins-esque videos. A lot of them don't talk about genuine issues they have with the piece of media they're covering, like the gameplay, writing, music, and instead opt to have most of their video talk about stupid shit that a normal person would look at and not think anything of.
Red, I hate to say it, but I don't need you. I know, I'll borrow a town map from my sis. I'll tell her not to lend you one, Red.
Damn, it feels so good to be a gangster.
You were saying?
Wow, okay. I'm gonna be generous and ignore the fact you're saying was clearly a joke and go into the fact that you're using a remake to explain Sin and not the original game itself. I'd be more forgiving of this if it wasn't for the fact that you chose to twist context here, because what the hell?
Okay, how is that an issue? Also, twisting context? The only difference between both interactions in the original game and Fire Red is that Fire Red added the line of,
"Gee, that's lazy of them."
So I fail to see how Zack is somehow twisting context in the slightest.
Toro shit! You're telling me a level 5 Weedle at full health wouldn't break out of the Pokeball at least once? Also, why the hell do you have 50 fucking Pokeballs? In the Japanese version, you're a drunk who won't get out of the way until you've sobered up. Did you buy them all in a drunken stupor? And in the Western version, you're a petty asshole who blocks our way until you've had your morning coffee. I don't know which one's worse.
Well, according to research, it turns out some Pokemon with a lower level, even at full health, can sometimes be captured. And the Japanese version is worse because he's a drunk person that literally won't get up until he's softened up. So, yeah, but why is that a sin of the game, actually?
What research? Where did you get said research? I don't see it in the video, it's not in the description, it's not in the comment section, and considering the fact this is you we're talking about here, I refuse to take your word at face value. But even if I let that slide, you also have to realize Pokemon can break out, something you conveniently omitted from this conversation.
For the record, I found an algorithm from the website shinyhunter.club that tells you what chance you Pokemon under conditions. The chance of a level 5 Weedle with all of its health and no status effects being caught by a trainer with no Pokemon is roughly 44%. This means it is more likely than not that the Weedle would break out of its Pokeball under this situation.
Ephwrong, why are you acting like catching this Weedle is some sort of incredibly rare thing? Sure, you bring up how it would be a 43% chance, which would make it somewhat unlikely, but it wouldn't be as rare as you're trying to make it out to be.
Whoa, it is so insane. To synthesize another strain, there's something in these futures that we have to be told.
Yes, but you see, it still has a good chance of happening. 43% is more than the average chance you'd get a 1 or a 2 on a normal dice roll, for example. Sorry, send the game for showing the old fart catching a Weedle on full health on his first try when it still has a good chance of happening. So bringing up these stats to refute Zack's point does zilch in the long run to debunk it. Also, to get into a tangent here, DS, can you quit it with this almost spiteful attitude you hold towards Zack. It's not as bad as, say, the attitude that you hold towards Keyblade Master in the second TTC commentary, but it's still genuinely irritating to hear you multiple times throughout the video make some sort of statement that amounts to,
"Oh, because you're you, and you're a bad person, I guess. I have reason to believe that you're dumb and stupid."
And before someone wants to bring up the somewhat sarcastic attitude that I've had throughout this commentary, I want to make it clear that I'm not intentionally trying to hurtle what could be considered ad hominems with little substance at a person who, as far as we know at the moment, has only really made a dumb video. But guess who is doing that? Yeah, I want to bring up the fact that later on you talk about some very questionable things that Zack has done in regards to Tony Sonic, but counter argument, I'm not going to deny that with what you bring up, Zack could be seen as a bit of a weird guy, but it wouldn't automatically excuse the terrible way you compose yourself throughout this video. Does the saying two wrongs don't make a right mean nothing to people anymore?
Also, was the whistling part really necessary?
What? Your mic quality is so bad that I cannot understand your whispering.
If you have the right stuff, go take on Brock.
Wait, where did he go? There's no way out from here.
He jumped over the fence.
No, he didn't. By that logic, you could also do that. You are aware you could jump over ledges in this very game, right? Like, did you even bother to proof check this video beforehand? Then again, concerning the rest of this video, I think I just answered my own question.
Okay, to pull a card from your deck, where's your proof that he didn't? Yeah, you just kinda say that this NPC didn't jump over the fence, and your only thing to, I assume, back it up was,
"Oh, well, you can jump over ledges in the game, you know."
That's another thing with this video. You constantly get onto Zack for not showing every single drop of proof, even when it's clear he's not actually trying to make an objective claim, and is merely making a guess at most, while also making callbacks and claims to stuff without actually showing anything to back it up. Now sure, hypocrisy does not make you automatically wrong, but it does make you very stinky.
Have the right stuff, go take on Brock.
I'm not supposed to be able to do that.
Okay, what's with you explaining glitches? If a glitch occurs in gameplay normally, then it's a sin of the game. But if it doesn't, and if you're exploiting it yourself, then it's not a sin of the game. Again, why make this a sin of the game if you did it?
I don't know what it is with both you and Tony Sonic making this rule and why it's a problem, but again, if it can be performed, it's a glitch. By that logic, 06 is a masterpiece.
Rock launch!
The issue at hand is that the glitch exists in the first place. Glitches are programming errors. By definition, that's just what glitches are. It doesn't matter if there's something you do on purpose, like going into subspace to get a second POW block.
No one.
Or if there's something that only happens because the game is acting weird, like platforms that are supposed to be, they're just not doing so. Either way, they're all programming errors, therefore they are something wrong with the game.
But Zack wasn't saying that the glitches themselves weren't an issue or didn't exist. He was saying that Shari was intentionally exploiting the glitch and blaming the game for that. Now, a much better point to bring up is how Zack doesn't really show how Shari exploited the glitch mentioned at all, and just leaves it at,
"Yeah, this was exploited, brother,"
with no real substance other than that.
Bonk gang whole lot of gang shit. I love Bill Clinton 6'9" is a fucking snitch. Fuck Elon Musk.
Well, pay attention to what I just said, dummy.
Yeah. So why are we fighting? I thought you just wanted to tell me about your favorite article of clothing.
He will after you battle.
Kinda weird to bring that the fuck out of nowhere.
Hi, this is the Ephwrong and editing here to tell you all, Man, I love having this hat on.
Yep, you did it, Ephwrong. You made a comedy. I'm proud of you. Have this gold star. Also, how exactly was Zach bringing this up out of nowhere? Zach was talking about this in direct mention to Shari, talking about the NPC's dialogue by saying that he would tell you about his favorite article of clothing after you battle him. Therein, not completely out of nowhere.
Hey, stop! I found these fossils! They're both mine!
You can have both of them if you want. I was just passing through. I didn't ask for this.
You know what they say in Pokemon.
You know what they say. The more the merrier.
I'm revoking your star, Ephwrong.
Pretty swag, huh?
If you ever cross eyes with another person, you gotta battle. And plus, even though, yeah, you didn't really ask for it, it is mandatory.
You are aware consent is a thing, right? And even barring that, the dude just assumed something and forced him into a fight with no say in the matter.
Damn, don't you just love it when interjections get cut off before you're finished talking? Ephwrong is such a good editor.
Hey, guess what? I want to build a guy to show me his rare Pokemon. I had a lot of pages in my Pokedex. After all, Bill's world famous as a Pokemaniac. He invented the Pokemon storage system on PC. Since you're using the system, go thank him.
Bro, I have one Pokemon. What the fuck are you talking about? Seriously, no one tells you about the PC and how it works unless you talk to the optional NPCs. By itself, that's fine, but if you're just going through the story and not catching any Pokemon, this comes out of nowhere.
I mean, the game is still encouraging kids to explore, but even though it's actually kind of story-wise in the game and not really in the anime, but basically, if you actually catch 6 Pokemon, and if you catch like a 7th one, it will get stored into a PC that the game will notify you about. But you won't really know until you at least talk to the NPCs in the Pokemon Center.
So, I guess solo runs just don't exist. Sorry, my dry bread, J-Rose, but apparently you've been playing the game the wrong the entire time.
Never mind how part of the appeal of Pokemon is supposed to be that there's no wrong way to play, hence why you can beat the game with a series of diverse teams and moves.
But in all seriousness, not everyone's gonna play like this. Yes, it's incentivized to do so, but it's not mandatory. Plus, again, it's never really stated until it happens, and at this point in the game, that's very possible, so it does kind of come out of nowhere.
Wait. What doesn't exist? Once again, I don't understand what exactly you're trying to say here, but with that in mind, where did Zach even imply that Shari or these other unrelated people were supposedly playing the game wrong? All he did was bring up how if you catch a 7th Pokemon after you've filled up your team, it gives you a message that it was sent to the PC. You both go on this tangent about how Zach claims that not filling up the Pokédex is discouraged, but unless there's genuinely something that I've missed, it feels like you're just making up something to get upset about.
With your ability, you could become a top leader in Team Rocket. Buddy, I'm 10. You really think that putting a 10-year-old in possession of a fire-breathing lizard in any sort of position of power for a crime syndicate is a good idea? I wouldn't do that even if they didn't have the fire-breathing lizard.
He probably means when you're an old age. No, I get you might need an ID when you're 16 in order to get a job, but he probably means that at an old age.
You say that, but you realize this is a series where you can catch legendary Pokemon and basically do anything you want, right? And considering the police in this game, yeah, I'm still surprised there isn't more crime, if I'm gonna be honest with you.
Okay, but what was the point of this?
I'm sure most of you know this one. In Gen 1, we had what's commonly referred to as Smart AI, where our opponent will always, without fail, use a move with a type advantage. Charmeleon is a fire type, so he's weak to water, and while that can, for the most part, be a pain in the ass, the only water type move this Shelter knows is Withdraw, which can't hurt me. It doesn't matter that it knows other moves that can hurt me, it doesn't even matter that Shelter's defense stat can literally go no higher because of how many times it's already used Withdraw. It will always prioritize the move it thinks will be super effective.
Because Withdraw is a water type move, so of course it would be super effective, even though it doesn't really do damage.
Actually, said water-type move does not do super effective damage because it doesn't do damage at all, which is Shari's entire point.
I haven't seen a video miss the point so fucking hard since, I want to say Tony Sonic's SA1 video, which is concerning. You literally acknowledge he was right and even understand using Withdraw as a useless move after a set time. I'd be willing to let a lot of padding slide, but this one is the most egregious example because of how stupid this point is. I want to remind y'all, this video is 35 minutes long, with slow talking and missing the point multiple times. I swear, if I cut out all the stories out and took away all the stupid points, this video wouldn't be 10 minutes, and that's still giving you the benefit of the doubt.
I'm sorry, but you two getting onto Zach for leaving stuff in that could have been cut is entirely ironic, given that a majority of this commentary has been you two padding out the video with sourced media clips that bring everything to a scream screeching halt, points that don't even debunk anything Zach is saying, or statements that generally add nothing to the overall discussion, much like the one from not that long ago.
Oh, seriously, I'm really not supposed to be able to do this. Why is this so easy?
What? Like, what in goodness? I'm not gonna yell that. I'm not gonna yell. Just 10 cents. 10 cents, you pity motherfucker.
And yet, you only give him 1 cent.
I'm not even sure what Zach is going for here. So, the first time Shari uses a glitch, he gets 1 sin, same with the second, which we cut out. However, the third time, he gets 10 sins. In theory, at least. In practice, it's actually just only 1. Like, what's the point of that sudden jump? Was it what he did? So skipping Brock and catching Mew is one thing, but getting a Pokemon to level 100 is an issue that's worthy of 10 sins. Something that would increase his sin count by roughly 50%, given we're only at slightly more than 20 sins.
Yeah, it's meant as comedic buildup, with him getting more and more upset at Shari for supposedly exploiting the glitches within the game. Now granted, this still falls flat on its ass, because once again, Zach doesn't really explain how Shari is exactly exploiting these glitches, but I can at least see what he's going for, you big dingus.
I'm a Pokemon. No, I'm not. Call me Bill. I'm a true blue Pokemaniac. Hey, what's with that skeptical look? I'm not joshing you. I screwed up an experiment and got combined with a Pokemon.
Okay, whoa, back up. Everything you said is completely believable given how bizarre this world is to begin with, but I feel like there's a missing element to this screw-up. You put the Pokemon in one of the teleporters, right? And then you stepped into the other teleporter, right? What was the experiment? What was the screw-up? Someone had to run the cell separation system the first time. Why do you need my help?
Remember Blue or Gary? Bill tried to do the experiment with him, maybe.
Okay, so what's stopping him from doing it again? No, seriously, I need an explanation, because you don't offer one, if when I looked up, the game doesn't either.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe the fact that Gary isn't there anymore? Do tell! How exactly would he be able to do this experiment again without any kind of an assistant?
The Cascade badge makes all Pokemon up to level 30 obey.
Way ahead of you, Missy. My level 100 obeys me just fine.
Oh, no. You're not getting off scot-free. 10 cents.
I can do anything.
I mean, at least this time he actually did give Shari 10 sins.
I mean, A for effort, but is he even gonna bother explaining why it's a sin? No? Alright. But if I had to take a very wild guess here, it's because he's wrong about how the badges work, which would be a legitimate argument, if not for his Gen 2 video, where he literally acknowledged he was wrong about that.
See, this is something I didn't have a lot of experience with in Pokemon because as a kid, I didn't have anyone to trade with me. Remember in Gen 1 when I would get certain badges and the gym leaders would tell me that all Pokemon up to a certain level would obey me because I had said badge? Well, the reason they would bring that up is because of the obedience mechanic in the Pokemon games. If you raise your Pokemon past a certain level without the necessary badge, they wouldn't always listen to your commands, which makes sense. They didn't want players to trade in a high-level Pokemon and breeze through the game.
And I know you watched it because you made this video and plan on making his Gen 2 video as well.
Mind you, both of us believe that you still have the right to point it out as it is something wrong with the video, but you don't. You've gotten on to Shari for making valid criticisms that have been corrected multiple times now.
Or maybe it's because of the level 100 Pokemon that he brought to fight Misty that he got through, you know, a glitch. Now, that's just an educated guess on my part, given the prior context of him getting upset at Shari for intentionally using glitches. Also, Zach has gotten onto Shari for valid criticisms that have been corrected multiple times now. Ignoring the total word salad in that sentence, legitimately where neither of you have made any sort of indication towards this being the case within the video at all. Also, to mention another thing that DestroyerLie's says, because I have nothing to say about the rest of Ephwrong's point.
I also want to point out that badge only applies to traded Pokemon, not Pokemon in the wild, so yeah, it makes even less sense than before.
Except it doesn't. Where are you getting this from?
I chair the Pokemon fan club. I have collected over 100 Pokemon. I'm very fussy when it comes to Pokemon. So, did you come visit to hear about my Pokemon? Good, then listen up. My favorite Rapidash. It's cute, lovely, smart, plus amazing. You think so? Oh yes, stunning, kindly, love it. Hug it when sleeping. Warm and cuddly, spectacular, ravishing.
Oh, this dude has definitely dreamed about f***ing his Rapidash if he hasn't already done it.
I mean, it's not wrong. Plus, most countries, even America, actually allow you to reproduce with animals if they are female. And even according to the Bulbapedia in the Sinnoh region, Pokemon and humans have actually proposed to each other in marriage, since they didn't really know how to reproduce.
Childhood ruin notwithstanding, that's still inappropriate for a kid's game, which is why Char rescinded. Or what? Would you rather him be for bestiality? I guarantee if you hadn't sinned it like this, you would have sinned him for being gross with a kid's game. There's just no winning with you.
Also, I promise you no country on Earth allows humans to reproduce with members of a different species, because species are quite literally defined by the ability of one member to reproduce with the members of that species.
What is anybody talking about? Why are we having this weird conversation about bestiality? Why are you apparently not against people who like bestiality, Destroyer? Why, I've done this bit already. Just... ew.
I wrote the story.
Ah, so this is all your fault.
Yeah, and what's the sin? I get it. You're sinning the Pokemon games for having a kind of bad/mid story. But to be honest, the other stories are kind of good. Even though they're reused and remade, I honestly don't have a problem with them myself.
So, you're aware that he's joking, and yet you're gonna still sin him for that. Okay.
Except he literally wasn't aware that Shari was joking? Where in the statement that you showed did he ever imply that he knew Shari was joking? Is your whole entire gimmick just completely making up shit? Because Jesus! Also, keep this text about how Shari has made it clear that his sins aren't meant to be taken seriously in mind for later, because I'm actually going to talk about this in my final thoughts.
Excuse me, wait up, please. No pedestrians are allowed on Cycling Road.
I'm not supposed to be able to do this.
Chaos. Swiss. Your meme is bad and you should feel bad about it. Also, this, again, could have been left out because it's another pointless media clip joke, and nothing would have been lost. Seriously, can we leave the 2014 CC era humor behind, Ephwrong?
There's nothing left to do but pray. I think it is time to find a new religion.
Oh, a better explanation, you say? You mean like how it pads the video out for too long? You know, a reason I gave earlier in this video? Besides, I do not give a flying fuck how many people say they like his older style of commentary. It still presents a problem that the video is janky with its structuring. Also, the people that I made up in my head 10 words ago say that they don't like it, so checkmate.
This is true. I am a figment of Will's imagination, and I fucking hate this.
Papa boy.
Anyways, the last 2 points that Ephwrong and DS make are possibly fine. I have nothing to say about them anyways, and even if I did, I have a feeling I'd probably just be repeating myself. DS also takes over the final thoughts to, like I said earlier, talk about some questionable things that Zach has done, and while I think that the way he frames it is very odd, I mean, I don't really have much to say outside of that. So final thoughts. This video, without having to do any kind of extra pontificating, was not good at all. It definitely wasn't as bad as the video on Keyblade Master, which, if everybody and their mothers weren't already covering, I'd probably have thrown my hat into the bag. But both videos definitely share some similar issues between each other. This doesn't really feel like a co-op, much less a group commentary, and more like you two just decided to jerry-rig a script together with probably as little communication between each other and as little flow as humanly possible, and it doesn't work, like, at all. The points you two do manage to make either don't really debunk anything, are totally confusing, not helped by the fact that Destroyer for the most part is seemingly allergic to properly explaining himself, or they're just downright ironic, especially when you take into consideration times like DS getting onto Zack for having weird interactions with his robot character, but like I said, there's zero chemistry between him and Ephwrong, or when he gets onto Zack for leaving stuff in that could have been cut when, well, Ephwrong's media clip usage exists, that's probably one of my bigger issues with this video. The clips either don't add anything and are meant as a cheap way to substitute humor, or pad the video out to egregious lengths and make it an absolute snooze fest to sit through. I get that Ephwrong is a really big fan of the 2014 style of commentating, modeling his commentaries as such, and it's not inherently an issue, because that style is something that can be adapted well. Space Guru 5 is a good example of this, but it's too bad that Ephwrong doesn't make it work. At least with Guru's content, it feels like he's adapted his commentating style to work with modern times, instead of just being continuously stuck in the past and refusing to actually update to a more modern scene. Being inspired by older commentators isn't bad at all. One of my inspirations, for example, to commentaries was Mr. Sir Raven, but playing a media clip of someone's review for a gajillion years and making me want to sleep instead of watching your content actually is. DestroyerLie's general attitude towards Zach was also my other big issue with this, because while I do understand the fact that Zach is a bit of a questionable person, it doesn't excuse the spiteful, almost holier-than-thou attitude you hold towards him. There are so many times where you make some sort of statement basically saying that you're not going to take Zach seriously for reasons, I suppose. It felt more like an attempt at A-logging instead of trying to give him any genuine criticism. And I mean, don't get me wrong, this might seem harsh, but I believe all the videos in this chain are pretty bad. While Chari's video does have some genuine criticisms of the Gen 1 games, they're very few and far between compared to the amount of times where he comes off as overanalyzing the games to the highest degree possible. Remember that text I mentioned earlier where Destroyer claims that Chari's sins aren't meant to be taken seriously? Well, while he doesn't really back this up at all, I do have a genuine issue with this. I'll admit I could be in the minority with this question, but what is and isn't meant to be taken literally with Chari's sins? Outside of the aforementioned criticisms towards the game and some rather obvious lines, it was genuinely difficult for me to tell what was meant to be a joke and what wasn't. And for something that is supposedly meant to be a review of sorts, this isn't a good thing. Taking this into account, it could be argued that even if his sins are mostly jokes, they still can have a point behind them that could be potentially seen as incorrect. Alternatively, the jokes themselves could make absolutely no sense in the context of the piece of media being covered, or even in the context of the joke itself. Comedy isn't just some shield that automatically protects you from being criticized. Zach's video was also a mess. A lot of it is just him attempting to actually the already flimsy points that Chari makes, along with the absolutely confusing convo about bestiality for some reason, and his attempts at comedy mostly just falling flat. It's just a weird chain overall, to be honest. Now, if you excuse me, I'm going to... I don't know.
In the gallows or the ghetto, in the town or the meadow, in the billows, even over the sun, every end of a time is another begun.
First of all, fuck you. Second of all, fuck you.
I'm gonna shove your big head up your big ass. And it'll probably fit.
This is where I get my dick sucked, my ass eaten out.
You can go to Hulk out.